for 1 hour. Okay. Groovy.
Cool. Perfect. Welcome, Bill. Introduce
Okay.
yourself and
Okay.
what is it you do right now?
Okay. Yeah, the internet actually broke up there for a second. So I was like, oh, geez, I'm going to look like, as you're introing me, I'm going to have this really weird pause on my face. All right. So, yeah, let me introduce myself. I'll say what I do and I'll try to keep it short and sweet. So, my name is Bill Kenney. I am the CEO and co founder of a B2B branded agency called Focus Lab. To note, we actually started a second agency early last year called Odie. So now we have two agencies. Been building that for 14 years. I guess some of my background, I was a terrible student in high school, became an art student in college, realized I loved all things design. That then translated into designing for people locally. Then you get more of that work. You decide I'm going to start a business, and now we're 14 years in. We're 25 people, fully remote team working with big B2B tech clients all around the world. Feels weird to say it still.
I bet, right?
Yeah, yes.
And that must feel, quite a proud moment as well for you, Bill.
It does. Yeah, it's in the day to day, you lose sight of that. In these moments, it's like, wow, that I am proud of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, let's sort of go back to the beginning. Sort of, you grew up on Martha's Vineyard, right?
that's correct. Yeah, I grew up
Yeah.
on Martha's Vineyard.
I mean, it's funny because I've holidayed there, so it's,
Oh, you have?
yeah. So I sort of wonder if you live there, how's it there in terms of, just, I suppose, is it sort of very sort of you're wanting to leave, or is it like just still a nice,
You nailed it. It's leave for the
yeah,
most part. Myself, I can speak for myself. Yeah, when you grow up there, the vineyard is beautiful. I love going back. We go back every summer. I no longer have family there or anything, but we go back every summer. My son loves going there. He finds it really cool that we can walk around town and I still know, the owner of this restaurant and the owner of this kind of like car rental place. And it still feels very much like home, even though it's not home for us. But when you grow up there, it can be pretty secluded, right? People like yourself would know it as this beautiful summer vacation spot. When you're stuck there in the winter and you're a kid, for what it's worth, even up through high school, and there's no malls, there's no chain stores, chain food, you can appreciate that as an adult. As a child, you're kind of like, oh, I need to leave this small rock and go somewhere else and experience the real world, if you will. So as soon as I was ready for that stage, post high school, I left the island and went all the way down to sunny Florida.
amazing, amazing. I mean, what was it like growing up there? Were you super creative, like from the start? Would you say?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think I can look back and like find a thread of where creativity was maybe a part of the things that I enjoyed. Let's pull some of those threads. So like skateboarding was a huge part of like late middle school to early high school for me. And if I want to try to pull a thread, actually, fun fact, I have a skateboard on the wall still. If I want to pull on that thread, I could say like, okay, the skateboard culture in of itself is pretty creative. Even like the old school Trans World and Thrasher magazines and the artwork that's in them and the artwork on skateboards and kind of the vibe. I can now see how those things are connected, but I wouldn't say as a kid I ever thought I would be a creative. I just didn't know what I would be.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think nowadays is very different to like, for me, sort of the late 80s, 90s growing up, and sort of a lot of people just did jobs. It wasn't
Yes,
like
right.
this overthinking sort of visceral thing that people sort of absolutely had to have sort of a path in mind and
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess I would also say that I feel like growing up on the vineyard and for me kind of being in that bubble, not negative or positive, but kind of being in a little bit of a bubble of like what jobs are even out there.
sure.
I could have never in high school been like, oh, I want to like own a design agency and we're going to do that. Like those things weren't even in my perspective of reality of life. Everybody that lives on the vineyard has a particular type of like lifestyle if they are from there. Right. So yeah, I didn't. I didn't know what I would be, but I did like to do creative things looking back. I did always enjoy art class in high school. I seemed to do really well in those classes in high school. And then when I went to college and that became more and more true, I got straight A's in all of my art classes. I felt the most competitive and the best, if you will, in a lot of those classes, where those were just electives for a lot of other people, right? They're like, we don't give a shit about this class. We're just trying to add some extra credits, where that was my best and favorite class. That was a bit eye-opening for me. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do something related to this. I just don't know what it was going to be yet.
Yeah, and I suppose that looking back, that's probably. I mean, suppose even for me, the last decade, you sort of forget to just like enjoy the process. I think everyone's in such a rush to like reach that pinnacle so quickly, and I think you sort of take the shine out of actually just the joy of just doing. You know.
Well said. Well said. It's an impossible task to think the other way. I believe like it's really hard. We started that way in this call, right?
Yeah.
I'm talking about the things we'd have achieved and you slowed me down and say like, wow, are you proud? And I'm like, yeah, I guess I don't do that much. We all do that all through different stages of our life.
Oh, completely. So if I remember correctly, you sort of started freelancing before you started Focus Lab.
Correct.
Talk to me about that period where you then decided, thinking, I'm going to make the jump from freelance to like the big opening of the company.
Yeah. Okay, so when I moved, I'll have to contextualize a lot of this decision making to show why it was easier and maybe more fluid for me. When I graduated from college, my undergraduate in Florida. Okay, so now I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts, right? What's that going to get me into a job? I don't know yet. So in my loosey-goosey lifestyle, I then said, I'll just go back to school. So then I moved to Savannah, Georgia, which has a big art school called Savannah College of Art and Design. And I figured, since I don't really know what I'm going to do yet, I might as well go back to school, continue my degree, and maybe I'll figure it out in the meantime. A bit of a stall tactic, but doing something I liked. My financial aid fell through before the semester began. And financially, I was not in a position to continue to pay for school myself all the way through graduate programs, all this stuff. So I just said, the hell with it. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm staying here. Now that's pivotal because that led to, all right, what am I going to do? And I just started getting kind of like random jobs, if you will, right? I was like a carpenter's helper for a little while, working in a restaurant. And then I got a job that was answering telephone calls for vacation rental properties. This is pre-Airbnb. So I would answer calls. Hey, how many bedrooms do you need? Okay, we have a house available. I'll send you pictures. Here's the link to the house on our website, etc. But what happened is in that business owner realized, oh, this guy like has some design skills. He can make our brochures better. He can update the website. Oh, he can go out and take photography of the vacation rental units better than we've been taking with these crappy little cameras. And he can put it on the website. And so I was really bringing their brand forward in a lot of ways. So much so that she started telling her friends locally in this small little town of Savannah, Georgia, hey, realtor, I got this guy. He can make your website better. She was really great about kind of like pointing a lot of people to me in an effort to help her friends. That led to a lot of work at night. So now we're in that freelance window of like, oh, I'm doing just as much work at night for clients. I didn't call them that at that point, for people, as I am in my day job. And there became a point, there was like this tipping point of, now I'm actually making more money at night doing this on the side and enjoying it. I have now kind of a moral, if what felt like a moral dilemma in that moment of like, she has kind of positioned me into this opportunity. Am I going to stay with her company? So what I felt like was appropriate was just to be transparent with her. Hey, this thing is happening. I feel compelled in being pulled this way, but I'll work here for like another 7 or 8 months. Don't be mad at me, right? That was my, like, I want to be really nice and I don't want people to be mad. So that was the transition I went through. So I worked there for a while, continued to ramp up over here. The context that's also really important here is I was a single young guy. My responsibilities were next to zero. It was keep myself alive. I could do that on very little food and water. Keep my dog alive. Could also do that on very little food and water. And I had a little tiny crappy apartment, a little studio apartment with like Murphy bed. Bed comes out of the wall, right? Like I had a old crappy Jeep that was paid for. So my monthly spend was it was definitely under $1,000. My rent was only $500. I didn't have a car payment, food, and I didn't need to make that much on the side. That really allowed me to transition into that. So for the people that are listening, are like, oh, cool. Why was that so easy for this guy? He just did it. Yeah, well, I kind of had like zero downside risk
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
all upside opportunity. So I did that. And now we'll probably go there, so I won't tell the whole story just yet. But then that leads into more and more work. I can't do it all, finding a business partner, building a business. The window I'm talking about right now is still just me in my apartment, freelancer style.
Absolutely. I mean, what's interesting is like I always find it fascinating what makes people feel like to take that jump, 'cause certainly like personally just now I'm trying to do the jump from freelance to, and it's funny, do you think people get to a point and you just think, right, it's like now or never?
Yeah, I don't know if I would say never, but I think what happens is depending on what side of the brain you're on or personality style you
Sure.
are. I'm more free flowing. My tolerance for risk is really high. And like with what I just said, I didn't have much responsibility that I had to protect. I didn't have family, children, all this. So screw it. I don't need much mental thought. It doesn't take much effort for me to say I'm going for it. Now, my business partner, on the other hand, who wasn't my business partner yet, did have a child and was married. That situation requires a lot more intentional thinking, but still, coming back to your point, you walk up to the edge of the cliff, you still have to jump. There's going to be unknowns. And I can remember very specifically, we were sitting down. We were both freelancers, but we were basically coupled freelancers. So it felt like we were a business, but we weren't. We were still separate entities freelancing, although all our projects were together. We went to our CPA in one meeting and we were doing like our taxes and we were both in the room with him. And I had already transitioned full time, and my business partner was doing a lot of math. If I make this, if I make that, and if I make this, and he was presenting it to the CPA to say, "Do you agree? I need somebody to help me transition and make this leap." And the CPA, Rob, at that point was his name. He said, "At some point, you can do all the math in the world, but you got to decide if you're up for this, and you got to make the jump. And if you make the jump, you're going to be dedicated, and you're going to find a way to make it work." Okay. It's almost like my business partner needed to hear that there was no perfect silver bullet answer to that happening. But going back on my point, like he did do a lot of reassurance and math and all that to make sure it makes sense. Sometimes you got to jump or you don't got to jump, right? Like that's everyone's personal decision.
Yeah, I mean, I think so many people now just think that there's just this one path that we can all follow, and it's just not as simple as that. I mean,
No, it's not.
and I think it's like those creative process photos that you see online, and it's always like this jumbled up scribble, and it's not actually a straight line that people want it to see.
That's right. That's right. Everyone's on their own journey. And I try to say that on many of the podcasts that I'm on. I can share my story and my perspective, but it suits me. A lot of the decisions I made suit me in the context that I just shared. But the one takeaway that is always going to be true is you might not have 100% certainty in the decision you're going to make. That's true in the brand projects that we're going through. I have to say that to our clients. We can never be 100% certain that this new identity is going to be a home run or a single or a double. You're right. Like, it's like you don't really know.
But
We still got to do it.
yeah, I mean that's the joy of it though as well, because it's always a nice surprise,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
maybe a semi-planned surprise. I think it's yeah, I mean it's a very personal thing certainly. But in terms of Focus Lab, what was it sort of that made you to sort of hone in on the B2B branding for
Yeah.
for enterprises rather than sort of spreading yourself out way too thinly as a lot of people do?
Well, and we were, to be fair, for a very long time, we were wide. When we started the business, let's just even talk year 1 through 3. That's just me and Eric for a lot of that. Then by year 2, maybe we start to bring on our first part-timer. By year 3, we might be up to like 6 people or something. That's guesstimating in there. But in those early years when like money is paramount, you like have to make money. You've made this big leap now. You can't then, you don't like, there might not be any nest egg to sit on. There's no runway. So you're kind of doing like whatever you can do to service the market. So in those early years, not only were we designing everything and anything, web, brand, anything that people need designed or developed, even for that matter, we did a lot of development in those years. We were helping them get the print, right? We were working through vendors to do all the printing of business cards and brochures and kind of upcharging that. If they had a website, we were helping them with the hosting and the domain name buying. And right, so you start to become this like, we do everything for you, which I think is appropriate on both sides of the coin. It is appropriate for the business because it needs capital, and it's appropriate for the client of that size too, because they struggle with all those things. And if they can go to one shop, that's great. As you grow though, you realize the things that don't make you money, the things you don't want to do, you're not as strapped from a capital perspective, and you can start to trim and focus and determine what you ultimately want to be. So for us, that became B2B. That was driven for 2 reasons very specifically. Over time, organically, and then naturally occurring kind of snowball effect, B2B came to us more and more. You get one B2B project that's notable, more B2B projects come to you. All of a sudden, you do like a lot of B2B work.
Sure.
We recognized that was happening, and it was fruitful in every way. Meaning we started to have a position on the market, and those were well-paid clients, and we were starting to kind of carve our path into an industry. Additionally, we recognized that B2B felt like more of a wide open landscape. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of really talented agencies out there. And so you have to determine like, where are we going to stand out? And for us, it was already happening. It was B2B. So we basically just took the ball we were given, not begrudgingly. We were happy about it. And we said, this is the right ball.
Yeah.
This is the one. This is where we're going to go. So yeah, B2B is our position. And it's important to note that it is a position play. It doesn't mean that brand can't transcend B2C versus B2B, right? Like brand is still brand. I just had a call before this, and somebody was asking like, well, I see you work B2B, but does that mean you don't do B2C? It's like, yes and no.
Yeah.
We could do it. A lot of it doesn't come our way, so you don't see it, but they are one and the same at the brand level as far as we're concerned, minus some like nuance semantics, right? So.
Oh, absolutely.
There's a long answer.
Absolutely. But, it's really interesting talking about you starting Focus Lab, because really I noticed for me, whether it's collaborations or employees, can you talk about the importance of finding the right business partners and the right people which I would think would be paramount to be moving your business forward?
That's probably ingredient number 1. Make bread, you need like water, right? So yes. But I was young and dumb at that point. I really just went with my instincts. I also wasn't running Eric, my business partner. There's 3 partners now. Eric was the OG back with me in day 1. I wasn't running him through a bunch of business filters and these types of things. I just had to trust that he felt like a good human being, and I do trust my radar on kind of good versus bad. But there was risk tolerance there too. I didn't really care. I felt like I had nothing to lose. I remember calling my buddy's dad, who is one of these business owners I mentioned earlier on the Vineyard. And I told him, hey, I'm doing better and better, and my freelance work is kind of picking up, and there's this guy I met, and he's a developer and I'm a designer, and we kind of really need each other to serve in the way that we want to serve. And I'm thinking about just making him like a business partner, just like starting a business. And he was kind of like, whoa, what the hell are you talking about? Are you nuts? But I'm like, I have nothing to lose. If we start from 0 and we get to $100,000 a year in revenue, and I decide he's a bad egg, or he decides I'm a bad egg and we break up, I got to a certain milestone. and I'll just have to figure out how to get to the next and what that means for me in my life. Now, looking back, if you're deeper into your life or a business, you're really going to want to make sure that is the right decision, because you're 100% correct. If that relationship is not copacetic, if you're not aligned, if you're not able to get through hard conversations, hard years as a business together, wow, it's going to make it really hard to build a thriving, persistent, successful business. So thankfully, the universe aligned Eric and I, and now Will, who is the third partner. Shout out to Will. We're all kind of peas in a pod. We bring different attributes to the business. We recognize each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we each fill gaps in that way. We're very vulnerable. We're very transparent. We lack ego, right? These things that really matter in business. And then you can trickle that down, right? Those same values still matter within the team. We want people that are humble within the team, that care about the work more than anything, and serving the client in a way that makes them feel heard, and those types of things, other than, again, feeding ego. Well, I want to make the best work ever, and we're not working with Nike, so this place isn't cool. Like, to us, those shouldn't be the most important things, and they're not.
No, absolutely. And, I think so many people struggle with the hiring thing, just in terms of, I think there's so much, I mean, certainly in this sort of market right now, there's this sort of mass hiring, but then also mass sort of letting go. And so it's like, you certainly see it with the big tech companies where
That's right.
they take on so many hundreds of designers, and then all of a sudden it's like everyone's sort of, just find it fascinating. What does brand mean to you?
Oh, God. The epic question that I get asked in every interview, and I have a different answer for every time.
Give me a
Shame on
different
me. Yeah. Right. So brand. All right. We'll start big and lofty and kind of prophetic, if that's a word. And then we'll work our way down to more tactical. Brand is ultimately the sum of the experiences that anybody has with the thing. Let's call it the organization, right? So brand is all the things, but you can't just stop there. If I say that, people are like, oh, Jesus, that's like such a cop-out of an answer. So what do I mean when I say that? Okay, I'm going to think about brands that I interact with, and I'll highlight some good ones and some bad ones. So if I think about my cable or internet service provider, their brand goes well beyond the logo and the things they say in their commercial, but it goes into the experiences I have when things go sideways, the random charges I get in my bill that I didn't know that are coming, what it's like to interface with the person that comes out to maybe fix something at the house. All those things culminate to the experience I have with that company. That is that company's brand. Now, that's going to be different for everybody, both on an emotional level and a physical level. Maybe some companies aren't interacting with the people side, but more of a digital experience. Maybe some people know the logo of the company, some don't. But we all have our version of what that brand means to us. So ultimately, that's brand. The cable company is obviously the bad example, right? It's always a letdown. Expectations are here, and they're always under delivering, right? So, and I think that's true, that's why I use that example. I think that's true in that industry for all of us. Now, maybe there's a local brand that I could use that nobody here would even know, but it doesn't matter. Let's call it a local coffee shop that maybe me and my wife cherish and we love. Maybe their logo is crap. Maybe they don't have it. Right? Like maybe their visual identity system is something I would never want to say we did, but I still have an affinity for that brand. Why? It probably is the customer experience. It's probably the people I see when I go in there on the weekend. It's probably the smell that hits me when I walk into that place. All these things are brand. So that's why it becomes really hard when people are like, well, what is brand? You're like, it's everything. But it truly is everything. Every company, though, will have elements of the brand that is more impactful to them. So staying long on the answer. Coffee shop smell is inherently part of the brand because it's coffee. A digital brand, an online brand that I might interact with, let's call out Dribbble. Dribbble, the design platform. It's never going to have a scent, right? Maybe it's rubber from the basketballs, but they don't play that up. So their brand experience is probably going to be in how we get together as a community and if that is working for us or not. It's not working anymore.
No.
I don't want to poo-poo on Dribble, through this episode, but their brand is taking a hit, right? It used to be
Massively.
beloved. It was beloved
Yeah.
by the community, and now it's not. And none of that has to do with logos or color palettes or anything, right?
No, that's so true.
We have to remember that brand is all these different components. Even though a company like myself, when working with these other companies, builds those assets.
Completely. In terms of, so what do you think the difference is with brand in 2024 to say 7 to 10 years ago? Are you feeling like a substantial shift with Focus Lab and Odie?
Oh, that's a great question. So, unfortunately, I don't see a substantial shift. I'd love it if I had some wild answer, some bleeding edge kind of like, oh, yeah, we see all these things. And you're like, wow, I didn't know that. I think shifts in brand are very long and they're very subtle, right? You're talking like hundreds of years, if not, well, probably not more than that, especially if I think about America, right? We haven't been around that long, but it takes decades and kind of multi-decades kind of to go through these transitions. I will say that B2B, I feel like, is finally comfortably in its renaissance of brand. It's willing to feel bolder, more emotive. It leads to more expressive color palettes, more expressive personalities and the way that it talks about itself. Where for a while B2B was very kind of buttoned up. You think like 1980s IBM of the world, right? Like suits everywhere. So then everybody goes, oh, that's how we should all act. Suits now literally everywhere. Now you've got people breaking out of the pack. Think of the MailChimps. I use those as an easy example. They're not all that new anymore. But when you've got a B2B company being able to be as expressive as MailChimp, that starts to set the stage of where companies can go in a B2B landscape. So that's new and different. I think what we will continue to see at the front line is brands being able to use new technology, right? As we start to think about people being able to wear eye sets from a variety of companies.
What is going on?
Right? Like how you might interface with something that you couldn't otherwise interface with. Here, actually, let me give a plug to this book. So a lot of people, I'm guessing, that are listening or watching this would be familiar with this book. This is the 6th edition of Designing Brand Identity. I was in a podcast with them yesterday, and I was prompting them to say, what's the evolution in the future of this book? And they started to talk about what happens when you open this book and it's holographic.
And it all comes, yeah.
And there's experiential stuff, right? So I think the innovation or the interesting things that we're going to see in brand are not necessarily what I said earlier, B2B brands finally catching up to B2C, but the technology and the tools that we can use to express brand further.
Yeah.
That were otherwise limited. That will be very interesting.
And it's that sort of tech element that insanely excites me in terms of what's possible. But then
we don't even know.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it, Bill?
Yes, we don't even know.
No, I mean it's quite a good segue actually. I was on Focus Lab the other day, and I was watching your reel, and I don't think I felt that sort of excited and sort of enticed for a long time. And you know what it reminded me of? Do you remember when Apple brought out their Be Different ad?
Yes,
and it
yes.
Sort of felt that sort of vibe.
Yes.
It's just looking back, Apple, well, they continues to do, but sort of certainly in the Steve Jobs era, the storytelling was just like, some of my
Magnifique.
favorite.
Yes. Yeah, I think we're getting back to a world and a society that is going to crave and desire creativity and storytelling and these types of things where for a moment in time, and maybe acceptably so, like we got stuck in features and products, right? Everything just became a little product and how can I make it better, faster, more features, more this, more that. It's like, okay, we're all over that now. You can compete on features all you want. This person can make that thing. You can then copy and make that thing. Can we get back to something that's actually more compelling and reaches the customer at a deeper level? You and I know that those things are powerful, but it takes the business world a while to catch up to that, because the business world doesn't want to talk about feelings. And I get it, right? That's fine. It's hard to tell a CEO of a rapidly growing B2B tech company to slow down and worry more about the feelings in their business and what the customers want to actually feel out of the business. It's like, no, they just want a tool to solve their problem. That could be true, but adding this other element is never going to be bad.
No.
And I'm telling you that adding it, if the tool's great and you add that, you can get a 1 + 1 = 3 outcome. And Apple definitely proved that all the way through, right? When they were competing back in those days, and still to this day, even though they've gone back on it a little bit, Jobs was very adamant about the, like, we don't put ads out there that talk about how fast our computers are or how many bits they have.
Yeah.
We talk about the emotional side of what we're trying to create in the world. And that compelled people. That's why people spend more money on these
Well, you know,
than the other headphones,
Uh-huh.
even though they work the same. That's brand in its effect.
oh, complete. You know, and even thinking back when, you know, Steve would be doing sort of the talks and the presentations, it was never like a big show and dance. It was just him on the stage with the new product, and it was
Using it.
and
Yeah.
you using it, and it was just him doing his best storytelling like he'd ever do. You know, sort of
Yes.
now
Yeah.
it's quite showy now. You know.
Yes. Yeah. So I think we're getting there. We see that with our clients. The type of like community events they put on and the type of like impact they want to bring to that stage very specifically. Everyone's trying to emulate what Steve Jobs was doing got so long ago now.
Oh, absolutely.
He set the way.
Completely. I have to say, congratulations on your book, Bill.
Oh, thank
Conquer
you.
Your Rebrand. I have to say, it's been a pleasure to read so far. It's been certainly the first business brand book that has not felt like a sales pitch. And I thank you for that. I really do, because it's almost like you're speaking to the readers as like friends in a local cafe, but sort of with
Yes.
logical steps and doable and completely achievable.
Yeah.
How, I mean, did you always want to do the book, or was it sort of an aim later on?
Yeah, I just want to touch on one point and thank you for what you said about the tone that I took in the book and the approach of how I kind of chose to write it, which is more friend to friend. Let me help you. I'm not here to sell you on anything. That is my general demeanor in life. And I really wanted that to come through in the book. I did not want the book to be a sales pitch. I'm really happy you said that. So I'm thanking you for that.
Thank you.
I would also give a shout out to Peppermill, who you can find on Amazon, who gave me my only 1-star review.
1 star.
Who claimed that it was a sales pitch. So this is me not being bitter, but calling out, that what you're saying is the effect I was going for, but I know everybody reads things differently. Okay, moving on. So did we always want to write a book? Yeah, you know, we always had aspirations to write a book. By year 4 or 5 of our business, we're at year 14. I don't recall if I've said that yet. By year 4 or 5, we started to get some gravity where we felt like, hey, if we released a book, it probably could be pretty valuable, and I think people would like it, right? So you're kind of like, okay, what type of book should we release? Funny enough, we had considered doing a book that was more like the Designing Brand Identities book, not to copy them. That wasn't in our mind at all. I'm just thinking now because it's on my desk, which is more of a coffee table style book. A lot of beautiful imagery,
Sure.
and then trying to put other stuff in it. That was the original intent. The timing was really never right. You got to try to find time. When are we going to make a book? We're trying to do all this project work. So it just really kind of like disappeared into the back of everybody's mind. Until the end of 2022 or 21. Time is eluding me now. Now we're really deep into the business, right? I just talked about that was like year 4, year 5. Now you're talking like year 12, right? We've learned a lot. I have a much better idea of what would truly be valuable, why we should write something, who it should even be for, how we might approach it, etc. So it became more of this type of book, just like you're saying, right? Can I write, what's in there, 12 chapters? I should know the answer to that. Can I write 12 chapters that feel very friendly and informative, but give direct value, clear takeaways? And can I do it to two different people? The first 3 chapters are really meant to serve more of the founder, the CEO, that struggles to understand brand. Some of the conversation we just had here, right? What's the ROI and what is the true impact and what is brand and all these things that can be very gray. The rest of the book is more towards the executor of the work, whether for us that's the CMO or the head designer in the project, whatever that is. They now can read that and know our exact process. This is what we do in strategy and why. This is what we do verbally. This is what we do visually. Here's how you should roll out your brand. Here's what you shouldn't do. All that is just meant to be a toolkit. It's our exact playbook. I didn't hold anything back in there. So all that to say, I knew that would be valuable in the market. And to be clear and selfish, which is appropriate, I knew that would be valuable for our business too, because people would read that and say, I like everything they talked about in that book and they didn't sell me, but I need brand efforts, work, and I'm going to at least talk to them. So there's trying to create a win-win as much as you can create that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, anyone that I've been speaking to is just raving about it, and I think that's a real testament to your craft and effort, just on a complete genuine level. There's not everyone's like that out there in the design industry, and kudos to you. The numbers and results for your agencies gonna speak for themselves, but I mean, it truly is remarkable. I'm gonna have to read this because I don't want to get. I'm not gonna get this wrong.
There's big numbers in there, and then we'll break those down too.
So 18 unicorns, the number of your clients have gone on to $1 billion valuations post-branding. Your clients have gone on to raise more than $5 billion in capital and 16 acquisitions. When I read this to you, Bill, I mean, there's no coincidence. This is thanks to your craft and expertise and your team. But how does that make you feel? I mean,
like we started this call, that feels really wild, even more than where we started, which is like, global reach. And we worked with like a lot of great people. That those numbers start to get so big, they feel unrelatable, right? You start to talk about billions of dollars. But let's break that down a little bit. And you did too. That number is only true because those teams are also really strong. Their product is really great. They have wonderful leaders. They've picked the right market to be in, et cetera, right? So we are a small part of that journey, but ultimately all that upside is happening after the rebrand. So it's important for us to help people that land on our site understand that's the potential path of upside. For people that care about brand, not even for people that work with us. Let's be real, right? There's a lot of great companies. I already said that. What I want people to understand when they see that number is people that consider brand as a valuable investment have a much higher percentage of winning at the end of the day. And that was even part of the book. There's a story in there that I talk about where I was in a client on site in Seattle, and there was a couple of us Focus Lab team members, and there was more of the client team sitting around the table, and it was like lunch break or something. And one of the team members looked across the table and asked me, Bill, why does it seem like everybody that works with you goes on to get acquired or raises a ton of money, right? So that's a very easy question for me to be like, hey, I could just talk about our company and how great it is, and you're going to feel great. I didn't choose to do that because that's not accurate and part of our company's DNA. I simply said what I just said. It's attributed to companies that all care about the one thing, brand. All of those companies knew brand was going to help them, and it did help them. We were the person that plugged it in and did the work, but that's why they're successful. So that's proven time and time over again. Companies that care about brand win. We already talked about it. Apple cares about brand. Nike cares about brand. You think any of your leading companies care about brand? You can't off the top of your head think about the ones that don't. Maybe going back to the Comcasts and whatever the cable providers of wherever we are geographically located are, they don't really care about brand. Yeah, their logo might be like not crappy, but their brand experience they don't fully care about. and you see the result of that. So yeah, those are big numbers. It's really rewarding to see clients go on and succeed. It's if there's acquisitions, if there's big fundraising, if they're hitting new milestones in their business. That is the second most rewarding thing in my business. The first most rewarding thing in my business is actually watching our team crush. I get a lot of joy out of that. Seeing our team thrive, work on these projects that are challenging, right? You have highs and lows, but rise from the ashes and deliver great work and conquer these big projects and have clients be so excited. That whole roller coaster is the ultimate reward. If you can weather it.
Well,
that's a big if.
oh, massively, because I still, so many people I don't think last the full length that they're meant to be on their sort of journey, if you will, because they can't weather the massive dips.
It's really, to do what we do and we do it on a weekly basis, is really taxing.
Yeah.
There's just no way around it. There's no way to sugarcoat that. It's not even worth trying to pretend it's not real. Being a creative, and not to say that work is not hard for other people, but being somebody that creates things in your own mind, trying to understand what's in the other person's mind, give it to them, hope they like it, and it to be very subjective, and to do that every single week. Some people love it. Oh, no, hate it. Redo it. Start all over. Oh, God. Maybe I suck, right? Then all these internal questions start to, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe it's them. I don't know. Let me try again. Every single week. Even if you're winning 8 times out of 10, the 2 times you don't win in a given week really are heavy.
Oh, massively.
Even if the client's respectful, even if they're praising you, but they don't like it, you still feel the sense of like, damn, I didn't get it and I want to get it. Now, think about doing that every week for a year.
I mean, what kind of job is
And
this?
now think about doing it every week for 8 years, right? That can become a cycle that eventually you got to get off of, quite honestly. There have been people in our company that love our culture, love the clientele, love the work, blah, blah, blah. But after 8 years, they're just like, I love it, but I can't do it anymore. I'm going in-house. Where I work on a single product and I can really slow this machine down. I have nothing but respect for that. I get it. It's just the nature of the business that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. Or some people might say the beast, because sometimes it does feel sort of that erratic. You talked in your book a lot about communication and process, and I find it's certainly for me in recent years, it's so vitally important, twinned with the creative. You talked about this fantastic bakery analogy in the book, which completely, as soon as I read it, it just that just described it perfectly. For the listeners, can you sort of explain more on that analogy that you go through in the book?
My God, so let's be real here. I haven't read the book since I read it, right? So it launched, I'm almost a year removed. I don't even remember the analogy. Help me. There are also other writers in this book on my team. Did you say baking?
Yeah, let me try and let's see.
God, I do not even remember that. I personally, I think that's funny, but you could cut it out. You could keep it. I don't really care.
You know what? I mean, we can move on to the but it was so brilliant. Well,
I can talk about process.
Yeah,
though.
sure. And the need for good communication, right?
Yes. Okay. So we could be the best designers, writers, strategists in the world, but everything needs a track to run on so that expectations are clear and we all know what we're doing at any given time. So you need an underlying framework to sit on top of or underneath kind of wild creativity, right? Creativity that can go in any direction. You can get pulled off the rails quick. So when you talk about communication, I think about that from the front end of the project, which is how you onboard clients. Hey, this is what we're going to do next week. This is what I need from you. Here are the parts that are going to be really hard. Let's be real with people as they come into a project. Don't just pretend like it's going to be roses the whole time. It's not going to be that way. That is not reality. Okay, cool. We're all on the same page, but we're going to finish strong. Don't worry. It's not going to fail, but we're about to climb a mountain. Climbing mountains are never easy, but it might be beautiful and you're going to be really happy at the top. Cool. And then continuing that line of communication throughout the project, good or bad, challenging or easy, whatever it is. You also need a really tight process. That's the guardrails for the creativity. So our tight process is we start here and we don't go to the next step until we finish this. And then we don't go to the next step until we finish this. So it becomes very kind of waterfall-ish, right? Like we got to get strategy signed off on before we can create words and visuals. And I'm not going to go in and start building website till I have color palettes and type of, right? So it's easy for us all to understand this kind of linear action. But although that's easy to understand, it's not always common sense. I think what can happen is in the creative process, you can lose your way. Oh, all of a sudden we're over here working on this thing and I'm spinning my wheels and now I've been on it for 3 weeks and what are we doing? And I'm frustrated, client's frustrated. The process keeps everybody kind of like in check. I can't go through that door till I get through that door. All right, well, I don't like that door. All right, let's sit down and talk about it. Communication. We need you to go through that door. This is why. Let us help you understand why. We're here as a partner. So that's the checks and balances. Process and communication. You need checks and balances in a creative process for the reasons I just said, or you're going to be all over the damn place. I don't know if it's true, but I suspect in some agencies, the process and the communication is underserved, and therefore you get a little bit of a kind of a wild kind of feel throughout a project. Where for us, I could even comfortably say, like, I think we're over-indexed on process and communication. That can make it feel rigid. We would choose rigid over chaos, right? So there you go. There's the two sides.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's dive more into sort of the Focus Lab and OD brand. I have to say, sort of, do you want to say a bit more about the sauce analogy?
Yeah.
I mean, because
yeah. Okay, so sauce for us, and we've hit on this a lot, so I don't think I'm going to have to go long on it. Sauce is an acronym that we use that stands for Seek to Achieve Unforgettable Customer Experiences. It's a single word that we all know within our company, and it's very easy to say to anybody at any given point, is that project saucy? Do you need to add sauce to that project? It has a little bit of like a fun play to it, but in all seriousness, we all know what that implies. It's really helpful in an organization, even of size of ours, 25, which is not all that big, to have one word that we all know what it means, like at its core, like within its bones, as opposed to, are we focusing on customer experience? Can feel very businessy and like, well, what does that exactly mean? Is it the onboarding experience? Is it all experiences? So what we do is we profess our stance on sauce to our clients even in the onboarding process. Hey, when you hire us, we're going to care just as much about the pixels and the words and the strategy as the experience you're going to get with us itself. And then we go on to say, like we've said many times in this call, the experience is going to be challenging and fun and exciting and scary. You need customer experience to help you through that. If we didn't give a shit about that and all we did was just ship you work and we just didn't care how you feel, you're going to have a tough ride going through this. And you're going to leave probably unhappy even if you like the outcome. So we put a lot of emphasis in sauce. So much to say that at the end of every project, we have custom, I wish I had it on my desk. The hot sauce,
yeah.
We have custom hot sauce that's locally made. And with 3 different flavor profiles, we have custom packaging.
It's beautiful.
We mail that out we mail it out as a thank you at the end of the project to say thank you to the client. Thank you so much. Here's a little touch of some final sauce from us that's more tangible. And we even ask them in their kind of offboarding, do you feel like we lived up to sauce? And we want the answer to be yes. We measure it in spreadsheets. We need 8 out of 10 people to say yes to that, or we have something we need to fix internally.
No, I mean, it's a genius brand move in terms of the sauce, because it's, I mean, not just because it's so current and everybody is always talking about, you know, I mean, certainly in the UK, hot sauce is like everywhere, and you know and so when I saw that getting packaged up, I think it was it on Instagram or Twitter, X,
probably everywhere,
or LinkedIn. I mean, that's firing on all cylinders just now. But you know, it's I have to say it was such a beautiful presentation.
That you got to look into the details. right? And that's experiential as
No,
well.
absolutely, absolutely. What are your thoughts around AI and the future of brand?
Yeah, I don't really spend a lot of time considering if AI will take our jobs,
No.
for instance, just to kind of go right to that point, right? I don't seem to be all that worried, or I would spend more time on it. And over time, in 10 years, we will know if that was foolish of me or not. But AI in general, I am a proponent of. I'm generally optimistic on most, if not all things. So I don't look at it through a negative lens. I try not to be naive, but I do think it will propel a lot of things. I'm in ChatGPT. I don't know, often might be a stretch, but I'm in there once every couple weeks, and it helps me kind of get out the message I'm trying to get across, whether that be, can you make this shorter and more concise or more compelling and just help me write this in a better way? That's really helpful for me. I've used Midjourney just for fun. That's really interesting to me because it's more visual and I'm a more visual person.
Yeah.
I love that I can put some prompts in there and it will spit out some really interesting things. I do think it will have a profound impact on certain roles, which in turn I think will force a lot of my and our types of companies to be more about thinking and consulting and strategic than outputs. Because at some point, outputs can be created. So I do know that that's true, right? If we were just an output machine, let's call it a design as a service agency where you never interfaced with anybody and it was like a Fiverr or like a 99 Designs and it was just kind of like, give me crappy logo, I give you $100 and it spit out. Like AI will be able to do all that. It can already do that.
Yeah.
Companies that want to stay within design and anything kind of like service related development, got even video production, animation, all these things. Like, I do wonder at some point how much of the output can be recreated. The intellectual side, I don't really can be fully recreated. And I do also wonder if at some point, like, people are going to have an appetite for the human creation versus just the AI
True.
output. So I guess all that to say, and I'm thinking out loud, I still think they live together. I don't know that one becomes significantly more powerful than the other. I think there'll be a little bit of a rush, which we're in
Yeah.
now, a little bit of a gold
Yeah.
rush. The pendulum will pull forward a lot. That probably will wipe out some business models. The pendulum will pull back because people will have a thirst and a hunger to get back to the old reality of working with people. And then we'll find center. And I don't know what center is yet, but I'm along for the ride. I'm
No,
here for it.
absolutely. I think the only way I sort of think of it just now is the thing that AI is, I suppose, in design is not hitting is like the personal sort of individual design sort of creativity. It's sort of churning
Yeah,
out a lot of sort of semi sort of generic sort of ideas and
correct.
things. But
It's going to be very on the
oh
nose.
yeah, yeah,
Its outputs will always be very on the nose. Where I guess maybe some certain prompting could help that. I don't know, speculation. Let's not forget though, like I've been in artboards and done some things by mistake that have
yes,
become the final
uh huh,
solution. We were working on a project where the logo was like this ninja head, and I jumped into the artboard and there was an accidental white rectangle box over the top of it in Illustrator. So it looked like it was peeking up over a thing, but it was actually a random white box that had gotten shifted over by accident. That became the final solution because this idea of the ninja peeking was way more interesting than just a full circular head of
it's
a ninja.
quite often the mistakes,
That
isn't it?
right. So like, how could it account for that? I don't know. Like at some point, creativity might still require somebody being sloppy and messy and trying things and organic conversations. I just had another organic conversation last week, and through conversation, we landed on all these ideas that I don't know that inputs
Would have done that.
could have resulted in, but maybe they can. I don't think they're going to start doing it tomorrow. And going all the way back to the B2B point, B2B brands are finally getting ready to be bold. I don't know when they're going to be putting in inputs and spitting out an entire brand identity system and verbal identity systems and repositioning themselves out of a tool. That's where I think it's going to hit the lower levels first, and it already is, right? Spit me out some simple imagery for my blog image
Oh, completely.
because I don't want to have to create this and I don't have a designer. Cool. It all kind of looks the same though. So for a company that doesn't want to look like that, that will then become the next hurdle to
Yeah,
get
like the
past.
problem of actually standing out as opposed to just like looking like everyone else.
Yes.
Yeah, completely.
Correct. You can tell an AI image already. You can really, really tell. The photography one, whoa, some of those look real,
I have to
really
say that's the
real.
one that scares me because I started off in photography before design, and at least like what 5, 7, not even that, a few years ago, if you saw a photo, it was a photo, like just in terms of
Yes.
confirmation. And now I'm looking at photos, I'm thinking that I do not know if that's real.
Could never tell. Could never tell. I had, for fun, my son was really into kind of like army clothing and stuff. So I did a prompt to put my cat in like military clothing and have her in a realistic. The prompts were like 4K hyper realistic photo on a rainy day in the streets of New York City wearing army fatigues. What it spit out, I was like, oh my God, I can't
It
believe
looks
how
so
real
real.
that looks. It looks so real. But if you do generic post of like, I'm writing about AI and I need a picture of a robot sitting in front of a computer, it looks like that generic AI output.
Yeah, but what fun as well, for kids to be growing up in this,
It's so much fun.
just
Oh, and on that note, he has been doing that. So my son is in middle school. Now we're going well beyond the point, but maybe not. In his communications class, they are using AI tools. It is actually part of the class. He's in 8th grade. They're using Midjourney. They're using ChatGPT. They're talking about AI as a tool in a function to help them do the work that they're doing.
no,
Right? So it's going to be prevalent, even though we're in the gold rush.
yeah,
Right? It's going to be here to stay. No different than the tech bubble.
yeah, of course, yeah.
Right? When that tech bubble in '99, I guess, blew up, that didn't mean the Googles of the world went away and the Microsofts, right? Like the winners will stay and that industry will mature. We're just in the early stages right now.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I'll try and wrap this up for your timing here, Bill. What are your aspirations and goals for the future for moving forward with your agencies?
Okay, so I have very clear answers for that. So we're on a mission now to first and foremost be the name when it comes to B2B branding, right? That's like our clear, big, bold, what do they call it? BHAG from good to great. Big, audacious, hairy goals. Big, hairy, audacious goals, BHAG. So we want to be synonymous with B2B branding, our name specifically. That way we show up everywhere when that is a need or it's talked about. But while that's happening, we want to continue to get our arms more around branding. And what I mean by that, and Odie is an example, okay, well, Focus Lab serves this clientele. It sits here. But what about this other clientele? What about the startup and the pre-seed stage type of customer that only has X dollars in this type of time? Well, let's serve them too. Okay, so now we're getting embedded into like another market as far as brand. What about when companies need other types of things from us? Marketing campaigns. These are now bad examples that we're not going into anytime soon. Marketing campaigns or some type of media arm. What if we had the best and highest performing brand media, which would be like the best newsletter, the best YouTube channel, but it's not a Focus Lab thing necessarily.
Sure.
What if it's its own brand as well? So now you can see what I'm saying, where we start to kind of like get our hands in all things brand. And it's not just Focus Lab, the agency that does a ton of cool things, but that we are like intentionally and with the right intentions planted in the brand journey from all sides. That's what we're after now. That journey will take a while. Now you're talking about multiple businesses in markets that we don't even currently sit in or have skill in. But to do what we want to do, to have our biggest effect on brand, we're going to have to continue to build those things. So Odie is step one in a larger journey.
Amazing, amazing. It has been such a pleasure to speak with you, Bill, today. I really appreciate your time. Where can folks find you online and keep up to date? And anything else you'd like to promote, please feel free.
Yeah, so you can find me everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, whatever, Dribble, if you still go there. My handles on everything are Bill, Bill, S, middle initial S for Sam, Kenney, Kenney. That's my handle for everything. But I would say I spend the most time on LinkedIn. It's cool, I promise. Follow me on LinkedIn. I do post on Instagram and I do post on Twitter. Outside of that, you can find the book on Amazon. You can just go to Amazon and search the name. Or you can go to conqueryourrebrand.com and you can find it there as well.
Perfect, Bill. Thank you so much for coming on. I so appreciate your time.
Thank you a ton for having me.